Walking the serpentine path, following the footsteps of the ancestors. Walking the serpentine path, making our way back home. Hey ya, hey, hey ya, ho, hey ya, hey ya, hey ya, ho. Hey ya, hey, hey ya, ho. Following the serpentine path. Life. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Serpentine Path podcast. My name is Claire Waudia Seed, and I'm a plant walker, song keeper, word weaver, artesana, visual and performance artist, womb wisdom keeper, and your guide on this serpentine path of life. Together, we'll dive deep into all things related to plant medicine, ancestral reconnection, intergenerational healing, womb sovereignty and bodily autonomy, rites of passage and initiation, time travel, shape-shifting, dimension hopping, the reclamation of our collective earth-based practices, and the ongoing, never-ending cycle of birth, death, and rebirth. Welcome to the serpentine path where the ancestors have called us back to. Let's start at the end and find our way back home together. All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Serpentine Path podcast. I have an amazing guest that I get to bring on today. So please welcome to the show, Ashanti Cervantes. Thank you so much for being here.
It is so my pleasure to be here. I am so excited for this conversation. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, me too. We, before we press record, the first 20 minutes, just kind of checking in and talking and sharing about everything that we want to bring forth. I'm just lit up by this topic, by this conversation, by all of the medicine that you have to share. So yeah, what a gift. So you offered a little bit of a different introduction into this episode. So I would love to give you this space to share this meditation that you do on a daily basis, just to kind of orient us.
Beautiful. Yes, thank you. So there's an exercise, a family constellations exercise that I do every morning. And the purpose of this exercise is to help us connect to the life force that comes directly from our ancestors, specifically with our parents. And it's a very simple exercise. I love doing it when I'm walking my dog and I'm just facing the sun, because to me, sun represents life. And then this is also part of kind of you, me, and you, and everybody else stepping into our day with full conviction that we're here to live a full life and we have full support from our ancestors. So it's very simple. I'll walk you through it, and then we'll model it for your audience. So the way that this exercise starts is you want to bring yourself to center. So just focus on your breath for a couple of seconds. Notice how your body feels. And then when you feel ready and present, what you're going to say is you're going to speak your name out loud. And you're going to speak your full name. So I'm going to model it. I am Ashanti Cervantes Fortich, daughter of, and then you're going to say your dad's full name, his birth certificate name. Daughter of Jorge Cervantes Montoya. And then you're going to place your dad behind or in front of you on the right side. And then you're going to continue with, and daughter of, and now you're going to say your mom's full name, birth and maiden name, daughter of Rosario Fortich Rodriguez. And then you're going to place your mom behind you or in front of you on the left side. And then I usually take a moment to bow and to say thank you. Thank you for giving me life. Thank you for this gift. Thank you for all that you've given me, how you have given it to me. I take you into my heart just as you are, knowing that you can only give me what you received. And I honor you by living my life fully in love and abundance and health, in right relationship with my partner. I leave with you what is no longer mine to carry. I give it back with love so that I may step forward into my life. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And every time that I do this exercise in the mornings, I just feel this like sense of peace and alignment within me that then helps me step into my day just from this really beautiful, strong, aligned place.
So beautiful. Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, so you're going to start with I am and your full name, full maiden name.
It's so funny because this came up and I was like, oh my God, my like legal name. I have like some back and forth with it, but I think it's a good thing to share it, so I'll do it. I
Okay.
go artistically by Claire Wouty Yassid, but I'll share, my name is, I am Claire Catherine Geringer,
Daughter of, and then your dad's full name,
daughter of Grant Robert Geringer,
and then place your dad on your right side, and then daughter of, and your mom's full maiden name.
daughter of Sarah Mueller Geringer,
And then you place your mom on the left side. And then if you feel it feels safe for you, then you can take a vow and say, thank you. Thank you for giving me life.
thank you for giving me life.
Thank you for giving me what you received.
Thank you for giving me what you received.
I take you into my heart just as you are.
I take you into my heart just as you are,
Knowing that you too are at the service of our system.
knowing that you too are at the service of our system,
Even when sometimes I don't understand it.
even when sometimes I don't understand it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, I think the big part of it to remember is that it's so easy. I think especially for those of us who are like deep in our healing work and deep on our path, to look at our parents and to just throw judgment on them and to be like, you didn't do enough. And like, I'm doing so much for our family and for our line. And I've certainly thrown very unfair and accusatory statements like that at my parents. And just this reminder of one piece that you put in there, which is like, you are in service to our family system. Like, actually, exactly what you're doing is exactly what our lineage needed. That's what it was, and it's perfect. And I totally don't understand it at all. Like, I don't know what the fuck is going on. I don't know why you're doing that, but like, it is God's most divine plan, and thank you. It's perfect. Yeah, thank you. What a beautiful orientation. I'd love to invite you now to share, the question that I ask all of my guests, which is if your ancestors were here with us now, which of course they always are, how would they introduce you and what role would they say that you play in your family lineage?
This question, I love it because when I feel into it, what comes through for me is ah, I can feel all of my ancestors behind me. And they're like my biggest cheerleaders. And they are all like cheering on and I mean, pom poms, the whole thing. And if they were here to introduce me, they would say that they are so proud of me and so proud of the work that I've done to learn to love everyone in my system, regardless of what they've done. And I feel like they would say that they're very excited for our system because this restoration of love that I feel I'm being a channel for, it doesn't just impact me, it impacts everybody in my system, dead and alive. Everybody, because there's no real death, right? Like everybody, my even my ancestors are still alive in some way. So yeah, I feel like they would say that they're just so grateful and so happy. And then of course, that almost like a duh, because they've known that this is the path that I was meant for, even if it's taken me a while to understand that the way my life unfolded, there was a beautiful purpose for it. And you just said something about, how our parents are perfect, right? And sometimes that's really hard. Like one of the things that I've moved through in this lifetime was an abandonment wound. And I've been able to get to the place where now I see that that experience was perfect for me and for the work that I needed to do. So to really just see how everything is perfect the way that it really has been.
Beautiful. And it's funny because I was gonna ask you like what role do you say you play in your family lineage? And then I was like, wait, I feel like she told me it earlier when you said multiple times like priestess of love, which is so beautiful and resonant for the conversation that we're gonna have today and just this like heart expansive understanding of what love really is, especially in relationship to the masculine, which is where we're going to really take things today. But you said something about like our ancestors are never truly dead, which is true. I mean, who knows the great mystery of the cosmos, but something that I think about a lot is, time is not linear. And the way that I see time is that like everything is happening all the time at the same time. And so what's going on right now in like my human brain of, oh, it's 1942, or it's like the Middle Ages, or it's like before Christ times, like it's all happening currently, and everything that I'm choosing in this timeline is rippling through within the entirety of the universe in general, but especially with my family line. And then also the reminder constantly that like I carry the genetic and cellular memory of every single person that has come before me in my ancestry. And so when we say like we are our ancestors, we literally just are our ancestors. Like we are just the like blood, bones, sweat, tears, like, intestinal, crazy, weird human expression of like thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of years of our bloodlines. And so anytime that we're doing anything for ourselves in our lives, we're doing that for our ancestors because they're us. There is no, oh, that was my ancestor. That is in the present tense. Like I'm just the embodiment of their like biological, physical, genetic expression, but also the embodiment of their highest prayers as well. Yeah, I'd love to just give people a little bit of context of how we got connected. So, I've talked a little bit on the podcast about a really amazing class that I took in, I guess, like January to like April, like a 3 month long class that I took with a woman that you are connected to named Peggy, who's awesome. And it was a class with Dr. Sasha Tessick. And it was all about male biology, which, like, never in my mind did I think I was going to be taking a 3 month long class on male biology with this German man in a room or in a Zoom room with, 12 women telling us about men and like this is how the male brain works, this is how the male hormonal matrix works, this is how men are biologically programmed to show up in the world, this is their essence, this is like the truth of the masculine from a really like scientific perspective too, not like a woo woo kind of polarity energetic vibe that I'm also down with, but really from a like, this is the male brain. This is how it works. And that class was like so unbelievably beautiful and so challenging. And like after pretty much every single class, or 3 hour long classes, really long, I would just go and like cry for like a full 20 minutes because I was recognizing how little I knew about men. Like and also how much I had really hurt men in a way that I was so unconscious of and unaware of because I had no idea what the male species was. Like it actually was like an alien thing to me, I was realizing as I was learning more about it. Like the more I learned, the more I realized I had no idea what I had been doing for 28 years of my life. And after that all wrapped up, I reached out to the women in that class and I was like, "Hey ladies, I'm really looking for someone to do a family constellation with. I have some deep stuff in my family line around men and women, and particularly like a lot of emasculation and feminine domination, and like I just need to clear it." And Peggy was like, "I have the perfect person for you. Ashanti." And I was like, "Let's do it. I'm down." And we got on the phone and we called, and I was able to share with you, and you were literally the perfect person to call in to do this constellation for me because you are so deeply aligned with this same path of getting into right relationship with the masculine, both internally, like our inner expression of the masculine as women, and then with men in general, and not just from a romantic sense, but like how to really love all men. And so then we had a constellation that was incredible, which we can definitely get into later in the podcast. But after that, immediately, I was like, oh my God, I need to have her on the show. And so that's just like an overview kind of how I got connected with you. And now I'd like to just give you a little bit of time to share, about your path, your work, your life, and what you're oriented to these days.
Yes, I also felt that, what you brought to the constellation, what you wanted to explore was so aligned with the work that I've myself have been doing for a few years already, too. I feel my path has been leading me to this moment. Um, just from all the spiritual teachings that I've accumulated over the last 20 years, um, have prepared me for the work that Family Constellations has introduced me to. It's almost like it's put the bow on top of everything that I've been learning throughout my life, even to the point of like having getting a master's degree 20 years ago on systemic therapy, which family constellations is a systemic therapy, like laying the groundwork to this moment. My family dynamics have led me to this moment. The relationship that I've had with my father and with my mother have led me to this moment of reconciliation and reunification. And a lot of my work has been around, in recent years, has been around healing the relationship with my father. And I did not have consistent contact with my dad for the last 15 years because of the wounds that I felt I had experienced from him. And that has also led me down the path of getting a better understanding and healing my relationship with the masculine in general. A few years ago, so I realized how scared I felt of the masculine. I was mentioning before the call, like I used to walk around the world, not even looking at men because I felt so scared of them. I felt so unsafe in their presence. And fast forward, many different modalities and just a lot of inner work, a wonderful therapist, amazing tools, beautiful community, plant medicine, and then now reaching family constellations. I feel like my path now is really clear. It's a path of love. And it started with path of love towards myself. Parts work has helped me tremendously in that, in learning to love all parts of me. All parts of me are welcomed and are valid, no matter how scary or dark or whatever they are. And now I see my path being expressing that self-love that I've grown within me out into the world. And the philosophy of family constellations really has invited me to step into that, because to me it's not just a tool that I use, it's a lifestyle. It's a life philosophy that I follow, that I live my life by, that has just brought me to this beautiful place of inner peace, of inner peace.
So beautiful. And, you know, one thing that I was thinking about when you were talking about the whole, 20-year path that you've been walking that has now brought you to the work that you do with family constellations. And I was just thinking about how, like, our our souls are really imprinted with a really clear understanding of what our dharma is in this life. And our souls give us like the exact medicine that we need in order to walk that path. And when I say medicine, I'm not just talking about something that is going to feel like good and fun and comfortable. Most of the time, medicine is something that like really it touches you in this place where you're like, seriously? That? That's what I had to go through. That's what I had to learn. That's what I had to like experience in this life in order to get to this point 20 years later, 40 years later, 50 years later, like all of that shit. God, like why would I sign up for that? And I also think about that when we expand out our whole family line too. That was something that when I was a lot younger, I think like in my 20s, and I was first really getting a long expansion of what my whole family line was going through, to really recognize like, wow, like there are some stories, there are some wounds, there are some processes of healing, there are some imbalances and curses and like lessons that take multiple generations to complete. Like it's not just something that one person can do in 5 years for their family. It's not something that one person can do in their whole lifetime for their line. Like it's almost it's this marathon and we're like passing the baton kind of like, all right, I ran my, 82 years in this life and I pass it on to the next one and they keep going. And it's just this ongoing turning of the wheel of taking responsibility at the end of the day. And we all do it perfectly in our own ways, but it's so beautiful to see how you were able to interweave all of those experiences in your life and to be able to look at it and say like it's really perfect. There's nothing that went wrong. There's nothing that I should have done better. Like it was all exactly how it could be. And then the other thing that you touched on just around the fear of men, like I can so relate to that, and I think most women can really relate to that. And there's two parts to that, in that one, I've been very open on the podcast about a lot of really intense abuse that I've been through in my life, particularly with sexual abuse with men, really having to heal my relationship with my body, with my sexuality, all of that. Like there was a deep layer of intense wounding that I went through. Yeah, I think that there's one side that there is a reality of there is violence that occurs in the world. There is true a lot of the time like sexual and physical violence at the hands of men. Absolutely 100%. No part of me is denying that because I've been on the receiving end of it. But then there is also this side of, I think the pendulum swing has gone very, very far, in which I was taught a lot growing up that, like, all men are violent at their core, or that all men are unsafe to be around, or that there are not men in the world that I could really turn to feel protected by and provided by and supported by and cared for. And so it's been this really intense, I mean, years long process. I think I really started getting deep into it when I was living in the jungle with my late and beloved teacher, Abuelo Keruin, who, for people who are new to the podcast, he was my, spiritual grandfather and elder who I lived with. He was 110 years old by the time he died, and he was like a true patriarch. Like, and I say that word, the patriarch, with like deep reverence and love and care for the way that he led his family and the way that he led his entire nation of the Kofan people of Colombia and Ecuador. The way that he drove the entire like indigenous cabildo of Putumayo, Colombia, and then also how he cared for me as someone that he loved as a daughter, an outsider, this like daughter of European descent, this like gringa from the north, right? Like he was the ultimate patriarch. And so it just shifted such deep stuff in me of like, wow, I don't have to be scared of men. And then feeling all those layers of just like genuine hatred towards men that I didn't want to look at for a long time. And it took me like hundreds of cups of ayahuasca to just like keep getting all of that shit out. I mean, there's just so much to it, which I know we'll get deeper into in the conversation, but I would love to hear more just about like your perspective of family constellations, give people a brief overview for anyone who has never maybe even heard of this modality or interfaced with it at all in their personal lives, like whatever you want to share about it that you think is useful for people to know.
Family constellations is a modality that was developed by a German um, man called, his name is Bert Hellinger. And basically, there's one of my favorite definitions of family constellations is that it's a method or therapy that seeks to restore lost love and order in a family system. And to me, the way that I've experienced it and the way that I understand it is the purpose of family constellations is to access more love, to bring more love into the world, into our system, into my life, into the life of my clients. And there are, like I had mentioned, of course, there's the technique of it, but there's also the philosophy of it, the life philosophy of it, which I'll share briefly. So there's 4 forces of love that Bert Hellinger speaks about. And the way that he thinks about it is that the universe, like the world, the universe is constantly pushing us towards accessing more love. And sometimes the things that we experience may not feel that way. But like you were speaking, we have thousands and thousands of ancestors, all of them with their own stories, all of them with their own pains, with their own successes, with their own joys, with their own griefs. And that gets passed down, right? And what is really happening always is a restoration of love, an opportunity. And like I mentioned, like recently I had this like amazing experience of reconciliation with my father after 15 years of doing this healing, work at some level or another. And now I understand that everything in my path, everything I experienced, exactly how my dad showed up, was to give me the opportunity for this moment of reconciliation, for this moment of restoration of love in my family system. And for that reason, I say yes and thank you to everything that came before that, because I needed all of that to come to this moment. Without that pain, I wouldn't have been able to feel the love that I feel today, because it was necessary. It served. How my dad showed up served. So the 4 forces of love, the first one is the most important one and the hardest one to live by. And that is to be a yes to life as it is, even when we don't understand it. That means being a yes to everything that's happened to me, because it's really happened for me. And when I get to be a yes to it, even when I don't understand it, I am already opening up my heart to more love. And for the next step in accessing more love and restoring more love to be revealed to me. So that's the first one, being a yes to life as it is, even when we don't understand it. The second one is hierarchy. Every single family has an order. Parents come before children. Older siblings come before younger siblings. Grandparents come before the parents. There is an order. And when a family member is not in their proper order, it creates imbalance. It can create chaos in a family system. That's why it's so important. And, an example of how this may show up is when a child here takes for emotionally for a parent. right? That is being out of order. So when that happens, there's an imbalance, and then the life force, the love, doesn't flow as easily, as smoothly, as fluidly as it could. Then the third one is belonging. And this one also can be a really hard one because this means that no matter what an ancestor did, no matter what a family member did, no matter how horrible it was, they belong. They have the right to belong because without them, we wouldn't be. We needed them. Whatever they did, they are part of it. They're part of our system, and without them, we wouldn't be. And for that reason alone, they belong. Now, the way that I like to think about this one is if my ancestors are this like just beautiful chain link, uh, whenever we exclude, that is like now the life force that's being like plugged into me, right? Now, whenever we exclude an ancestor and we don't talk about them, they don't belong because it's too shameful, whatever they did, we are taking out one link from our chain of life force that's being plugged into me. Now, imagine if I have this excluded and that excluded and that excluded, what's happening to the chain of my life force? It's weakening. It's not as strong as it could be. And for that reason, it's important to also include the excluded. And the fourth one is a balance in giving and receiving. It is so important, especially in adult relationships, for there to be a balance in giving and receiving. And when there is an imbalance in the giving and receiving, the system will seek to restore that balance. And that might be the reason that sometimes we seem to be paying for things that are not for us to pay, right? But it's our system rebalancing. And when we can have awareness of this, then that rebalancing can be different. It doesn't have to be so painful or disruptive in our lives. So these are the main, like the four forces of love. These is the philosophy. So whenever we open a constellation and we open the field to explore the hidden dynamics that might be at play in somebody's life, once those dynamics are revealed, what we're seeking to do is to restore these four forces of love. Where is there an excluded ancestor that needs to be re-included? Where is the seeker, the client, in a no to a situation and rejection of that situation, where they may be out of order, or where there might be an imbalance in compensation or like the giving and the receiving. And that's what a constellation does. We're seeking to restore that love. Now, what happens is when you restore it and you restore the order of the love or the higher, all of that, then it's almost like you're now in a new path. And it doesn't mean that because you're in a new path, you don't have to walk that path. You still have to walk it, right? Like it's not a magic wand where you do a constellation and then like everything in your life is fixed. It's not that. But it does put you in a new path towards greater love. And then it's up to you to walk it.
Amazing. Perfect overview. And I wrote down a few things like with those specific like four principles of restoring love, right? Like being able to say yes to life as it is, even if you don't understand it, really shifts us away from this place of feeling so helpless, feeling like a victim, feeling like this is happening to me, feeling totally out of control of everything. That just like small shift of just being like, okay, yeah, maybe this really sucks right now. Maybe this is like the most horrible moment of my life. Maybe I'm in the most immense pain. I feel so lost and scared. And also like, what is this, what is this doing for me? If I can have like a long-term view. And it's so hard to do that when you're in it, but it's such a beautiful tool because it really shifts you into being able to be like an agent of transformation of your own story, like this alchemical process of like, I get to choose how I'm going to write the future of my life from this moment forward. I can't change anything in the past, but I absolutely can time travel into the future and see what this exact moment is doing for me. And maybe I won't understand until 6 months or 6 years or 60 years, I don't know, but like just being able to stay in that knowing.
Yes. And it's not being a yes to life. It doesn't mean that now we spiritually bypass and like we don't feel the things, right? Like if something terrible happens in something painful and terrible happens in my life, like it being a yes to it doesn't mean that then I not allow myself to feel the grief, the pain, the suffering, like all of that. It doesn't mean that there's no space for that. But it means that while I'm in my pain, while I'm in my grief, while I'm in my rage, I also know that there's a purpose for this. So it's a kind of like holding that those two things simultaneously. Holding and saying, being, yes, this is real. It is happening. I feel this way. And it's serving me somehow. And it's being able to hold those two things at the same time.
Yeah, thank you for adding that. It's so important to like the something I have to remind myself all the time when I'm really in the shit and I'm really in pain and I want to run away from that. I want to bypass it. I want to ignore it. I want to numb it. I want to distract myself. I want to do anything except feel that grief and that mourning and that just like sadness that you feel, the rage, like whatever it is. Being a yes to life as it is also means like looking at those parts and being like, yes, I will let myself be mad as hell right now. Yes, I will let myself be heartbroken. Yes, I will let myself be devastated. Yes, I will let myself like go into the depths of this because at the end of the day, I can't also experience like the joy and the pleasure and the connection and the fulfillment like to the degree that I would want to if I can't go to the depths. And so it's also understanding like being able to embrace that full capacity of life of like the lower I go, the higher I can go. And really like expanding our capacity for nuance and for intensity as well. When you're talking about the hierarchy, I feel like this is such a big thing in our culture because we at least in the Western culture, right? Like we are so devoid of rites of passages and initiations and the things that would really bring us into the spiritual maturation required to take on the clear hierarchy and order within our family systems. And I feel like we're in such a strange place right now where we have the older generations who did exactly what they had to do to ensure the survival of their family. Like so many people have been in survival mode up until the past few generations. And then we have people who are coming in who do have a lot more comfort, who do have a lot more material abundance and privileges and capacity to then take on like this deep healing work. And then we have like this weird shift where then we're looking at our parents and we're like, well, why didn't you do this thing and blah, blah, blah. And that's so not our job. That's like our own inversion of the hierarchy and like not respecting the order, which I say because I do that and I need to work on it. I'm not throwing judgment at anyone. Like I'm doing this, you know? When it comes to belonging, something that was coming through a lot because I'm someone of only European descent, and I have done a lot of deep work with my ancestry and a lot of the shame and the guilt that comes with this huge thing of so-called whiteness and white supremacy and racism and colonization and enslavement and all of the stuff that white people are like suffocating with and thinking so much about how like there's deep things in our families where we don't want to talk about anyone in our lineage. We really write them off as being like they were a slave trader, they were a colonizer, they owned plantations, they did this, that, and the other horrible thing, which yes, they totally did all of that. No denial at all. And also when we completely try to like divorce ourselves from our lineage and to not speak about it at all, it's that thing that you're saying of like it just creates those fractures in the links and in the chains where we can't also receive their blessings. We can't receive their gifts. We can't receive their love. We can't receive their teachings. We can't receive their support. Like there's just this big fracture. And it's something that I bring up because I do think that like ancestor work is so big for every single person on the planet. But I think for people who come from European descent in particular, who are really, really struggling with this kind of stuff, like as you said, the man who started Family Constellations was a German man, right? Like there are beautiful things that have come from Europe and European descent, and to really be able to open our hearts to that is really important as well. And then the last thing of like that balance of the giving and receiving, I feel like it's the perfect kind of explanation of what like, karmic debt means, or like when we say things that are kind of biblical of like, oh, the sins of the father, get passed down to the son. I remember saying that to my family when I was kind of explaining all of this, when I was deep in my work in the jungle and deep with plant medicines and seeing my whole family line, like all of the bullshit that had to be sorted through. And I was like, this has been a curse for 7 generations in our family. Like, I was so dramatic about it, because I'm dramatic and intense. And my sisters were like, why are you getting so biblical sins of the father on me? Like, we're not even like that, Like, you're getting too Catholic in Latin America. But really, at the end of the day, it is true. There is something that is being worked through in our lineage. And sometimes you see someone like, kind of like get punished almost. I say that in air quotes, like they're getting punished for something that they didn't do, but it's like something that needed to be paid back from like their great grandpa that never got paid back. And so just being able to like orient to that and take consciousness of it, then just at least helps you understand it. It doesn't make it go away, as you were saying, but it just like it gives you some clarification of what's going on, I guess, in the grand scheme of things. All right, awesome. So let's move forward into kind of talking specifically about, you spoke a little bit to the impacts that family constellation work has had in your personal life. And I'd love to hear kind of like the ripple effects that you do see that it has whenever you facilitate constellations. Like when I had a constellation with you, you made a really good point. You were like, this is not going to change everything. It's going to give you the next best step to take, and it's your choice to take that. So I'd love to hear just from your experience of facilitation, how you see this moving through the collective.
Hmm. So for me and what I see in the people that I facilitate constellations for is this inner peace that comes with awareness. And then, of course, it takes you taking action, right? Like based on that awareness and walking the path. But sometimes, I know that I've experienced this and I see some of my clients experience this where they're just like, they just don't know which way to go, right? Like they just feel like either really stuck in this thing. And I mean, in my circles and my communities, like I'm surrounded by spiritual people everywhere. Even my clients, they're spiritual people, right? Like, and they're doing the work. And there sometimes gets to a point where you're just like, you're trying all the things, but it's still not moving forward, right? And when we open the field and we open a constellation, we're really looking to see what's underneath there. We're looking to see to make the unconscious conscious. And when that new awareness comes through, I see it bring a sense of peace that comes from integrating, right? When you're living in like split parts, then you feel split in your energy as well. But when you start coming into this integration of yourself and your lineage, then you start feeling that unity even within you. And I think that like moving forward in life from that place of unity, of integration, is part of what makes a difference for people like in their day to day. And for me, one of my favorite things about constellations, exactly, it's not a magic wand, but it reveals the next available step, and then the next available step, and then the next available step. And if you're willing to walk that path, and the steps might not always be easy, right? Like sometimes the steps might still feel hard, but if you're willing to do that work, then that's when I start seeing people's lives changing and like things rearranging themselves, and then suddenly things become a little bit easier, or there is a breakthrough in the thing that they brought to the constellation. So that's the way that I see impacting me and others. And I mean, it's a method and it's a therapy of love. So to me, what we're doing every time that I facilitate an exercise, a constellation with myself, with other people, is I'm bringing more love. I'm accessing more love in my life and in the life of others.
Yeah, beautiful. And I feel like it's helpful to kind of share a little bit about, my experience of doing a constellation with you, because I came with this really clear knowing of the model of male and female dynamics that I had received within, just my home and within the past few generations was not one that I felt was what I wanted to continue moving forward with. And I totally thought that I wasn't going in that direction. I thought I had done everything that would, help me avoid that expression of male and female dynamics. And then I realized after the ending of my last partnership that, like, no, I was totally unconscious and there was something still there within me that I like couldn't wrap my head around. And it didn't matter how much ayahuasca I had drank, it didn't matter how many courses I had done, how many books I was reading, like how much I was praying, like all of it. It just, there was some missing piece to it. And when I did my constellation with you, I'm trying to think of like how much I want to share because there's so much in there that happened. But, the big thing about it was like seeing all of the parts of myself that were being embodied by the people in the constellation and seeing all of the women who were embodying parts of me just like exhausted and they were in like physical pain. Like the women were saying like I have horrible period cramps out of nowhere. I feel like I'm in labor, like I can't get up off the ground. Like all of the women were like on the ground. They were exhausted. Like I remember all maybe three or four of them were like I'm exhausted. Like I'm so tired of doing this alone. Like, I need the masculine support. I need the man to show up. And then they were also starting to kind of get angry. Like, there was like one woman who was really getting angry. She was like, why won't the man do anything? Why won't he show up? Why won't he protect me? Why won't he provide for me? Why? Like, why am I so abandoned and alone in this and exhausted and in pain and like in deep grief? And the shift that occurred was essentially that, like, all these parts of me had to actively ask the masculine to show up and, like, fully make space in their hearts and to say, like, I actually really need you. Which saying that, like, brings up so much emotion in me. Like, the conditioning that I had received, from a lot of women in my family, but also just from our culture in general that has taught me, like you're a strong, independent woman, you don't need a man for anything, like to the most extreme end of like men are trash, like they're not valuable, they're violent, they're oppressive, they're dominating, like be scared of them, like never need them. And the moment when the women finally said, like the women who were representing different parts of me, when they finally said, like, I need you. I need you to make space, or I need to make space for you to show up. Because the man who was representing the masculine hadn't gone anywhere. He was like fully present, but he was just waiting for the invitation, right? And so then after that constellation, it wasn't like the next day I met my husband. Like I'm still currently single. I'm still holding a high prayer, but I'm also very clear of what work needs to be done in my life, which is like I actually have to continue making the space. Like I have to open my heart. I have to really open my body. I have to open my vision to what it would look like to welcome in a partner and actually have them feel welcome in my life, welcome in my heart, not as an adversary, not as someone that I'm like competing against or fighting against or like, in this tense dynamic, but really to say like, I need you and I love you and I'm here, I'm ready to do this work. And so that since then, I mean, I guess we did that constellation maybe about a month ago, and there has been deep, deep transformation within me of being like so scared of like, oh my God, but I'm never gonna find like the man that I want to be with, into a place of like such deep hope of like, of course he's out there. Of course he's right on his way to me. Of course, like it's all aligning perfectly because I have finally decided that like I have the space for it. And so that has been, my month-long journey since working with you. It's been so beautiful. And it has brought me that sense of peace that you were talking about. Like deep peace where there used to be like so much anxiety and fear and urgency and searching and seeking and chasing, like all of that at this point I'm just like what a distraction. Like that's so boring to to place my heart in that energy and that frequency instead of really knowing like no, I'm walking my way towards that higher prayer of higher love. That's where I'm at, and I'm embodying that every day. Do you want to share anything about like what your process was on the other side as the facilitator?
I mean, it was a super powerful constellation, and one of the things that you know I experienced in as when I started this work in constellations, I actually always came to participate as the representative. It took me months and months before I actually had my own constellation. And the thing is that when you come as a representative, a lot of times what ends up happening is that the topic serves you too. And I don't think that it's different as a facilitator as well. The topic also serves me, and I've done so much work around this. And I think one of the big things that came through in your constellation was that idea of like allowing ourselves, giving ourselves permission to need the masculine. And that to me, it was huge to witness, to be able to be there with you in that. Um, and then also the way that like it impacted everybody else in the constellation as well. Like it's just such powerful work because it's not what heals one heals all. And so what the healing that the seeker receives, the client receives, it really is serving everybody. And I am, because I've been working on this polarity path for the last few years, I feel like it made so much sense for me to receive you, like the invitation to come and facilitate for you, and then the topic that you brought, and it was just like adding to the journey that I was on already with myself, with my friends, with my communities, with the people that I serve. It's very powerful.
Yeah, it was so funny because I remember the man who was representing the masculine was named Eric, I think. And three of the women, I believe all of their fathers' names were Eric.
You can't make that shit up. You just can't.
Yeah, it was crazy. And it something that I love about family constellation work is that it does mirror a lot more of the understanding that I had in living in the jungle, in being in deep plant medicine ceremonies, but like in communal healing spaces where like the whole family or the whole village would show up to drink medicine with the taita. And they're all working through their own individual stuff, but the understanding that like if one person in the family is sick, the whole family is suffering. Or if the child is suffering, like you don't just treat the child, you're gonna treat the mother, you're gonna treat the grandmother, you're gonna also go look at the land and what's going on, you're gonna check in with the waters, like everything is related. And so in that way, yeah, like even if you're showing up as a representative, if you're showing up as a seeker, if you're showing up as a facilitator, it's going to be moving within you. Like there is no, oh, this is this person's problem. Even though there's no problems, like there's nothing to be fixed ever. But this is like their inquiry. This is what they're coming to us with. But it's going to touch all of us and it's going to touch all of our lines as well. And so, yeah, I feel like family constellation therapy really does bring in this more like communal aspect and really takes away from that kind of individual talk therapy, which, some people find that very useful. I found that useful for a long time, not at this point, but it brings us back into that collective understanding of like none of us are separate, right? Um, okay, yeah, let's get into just like the feminine distortions and all of the stuff that we've been working through and coming back into right relationship with men, any of the like traits of that distorted feminine or like kind of the really unhealthy aspects of feminism, like the toxic feminism. and all of the damage that that is doing to women in our capacity to really show up in deep love and respect and reverence, not solely in romantic relationships, to be clear, like, how is this impacting how we show up with our dads? How is this impacting how we show up with our brothers, our cousins, like our male bosses or coworkers, any of that kind of stuff? I'd love to get your perspective on all of this because you have been so deep in this for a while.
Well, one of the big things that comes to mind around like reorienting myself is like a big one is men are not the enemy, right? Like I feel like what we're calling like toxic feminism is I think has imprinted a lot of us with this idea that men are the enemy, and we're like, fuck the patriarchy. And yes, and can we not equate the patriarchy with men, right? Because then we're just saying fuck men. And how can I be in love with a man when my energy internally is fuck men? Like there's no resonance there. Like there's just not. So for me, a big one has been just like even that basic reorienting myself to like men are not the enemy. Men are friends, right? And for me, that has been a really big one. And part of the healing for me has been healing the relationship with my dad because it was the first source of masculine energy that I had. I mean, this person brought me into his masculine energy, brought me into the world along with my mom's feminine energy. Like, and that's been my first experience. So for me, that's been really important in the journey. And I know that not everybody has access to healing the relationship with their dads in the, like, let's call it like the physical, the 3D. Maybe their dads are no longer alive, or, their dads are genuinely in this lifetime not safe, right? So they do need to in that have those boundaries. So it doesn't mean necessarily having repairing the relationship with our dads doesn't necessarily mean like now I need to be lovey-dovey with my dad and like allow him back in. Like, no, but it means to write that relationship, even at least in our hearts, to be in that acceptance, at least in our hearts, even if we still need to stay away because that's the safe thing to do. Right. But in our hearts. And I feel like that's so important. And when we are able to access that, I think it just changes and shifts how we relate to all the other men. For me recently, because I've had this experience and I've been working on this healing journey with my dad. And I recently went to Mexico to see him after 15 years of not seeing him. And what I walked away from that trip is this sense of wholeness. Because I have worked a lot in my relationship with my mom, and I'm in this like gorgeous place with her. And now that I'm in this beautiful place with my dad, I didn't realize until this moment happened how much I was not being whole. I was denying this whole part of me. When we deny the masculine, we're denying half of us too. We needed men to be, right? To exist. We need them too. And orienting myself to the world from this place of wholeness, I'm noticing how it's shifting how I relate to the men. I don't see them as the enemy. And I'm walking around and now I can actually make eye contact with them. And when I make eye contact, I'm feeling even generous and I want to smile at them because I want to share my feminine radiance with them just because they are. Not because they have to do X, Y, and Z or whatever, just because they are humans. And I want to love them. So, but I feel like working on that first relationship really opens up the path for all the others.
Yeah, absolutely. And you just touched on something at the end there, which is like, oh, such a shadow side in the feminine that I've really had to work on myself, which is not knowing how to relate to men from like just a brother friend energy. I feel like because of my own sexual history, a lot of the abuse that I went through, all of that kind of stuff, I started to learn how to only relate to men with like any kind of sexual energy. And I would also say like a very extractive energy from men, like very entitled, honestly, like having really high expectations that they were just gonna like do everything for me and that I didn't have to really treat them with kindness and like genuine respect and get to know them. Not just in romantic relationships, but like in all my interactions with men. And something that you spoke to of just like seeing men and like genuinely just wanting to smile at them just because like you're feeling good and like you just want to share that. And the way that men are so nourished by the feminine when the feminine shows up that way, and not in a romantic sexual way. I mean, yes, of course, that's present in our romantic and sexual dynamics, but like, can you be in that loving brother, sister, friend, like companion energy with men where you see your coworkers and you can genuinely like offer them a smile of that feminine radiance that they're going to pick up on and be like, yes, I want to be of service to this woman, in whatever way. Like, I'm going to make her day easier because she respects me, because she's kind to me, because she sees me as a human being, right? And so it doesn't come from this like manipulative, extractive place of, oh, if I smile at a man, he'll give me something. It's so not that. It's like an overflowing of joy that then just feeds the polarity dance that continuously births beautiful things, not just births children, not just births a sexual experience, but really births that beautiful union between the masculine and the feminine that we all get to coexist in. That's so different. Like that just sounds at this point in my life, like I'm about to be 29, I'm in my Saturn return. At this point in my life, that just sounds so much more interesting, so much more harmonious, so much more peaceful, so much more juicy, so much more vital than the part of me that used to show up and just like see men as like someone that I needed to criticize, someone that I needed to put in their place, someone that I needed to fix, someone that I needed to like get them to do it right, Like it's just that energy. I lived it for so long. I have so much empathy for those parts of myself that showed up in that way, and now it's boring. Really. It's boring. I'm like it's not interesting anymore. Yeah, I guess I have questions. I feel like the biggest thing is emasculation. It's so big and it's also so subtle. Like the more that I learned all the ways that I do it, and I still do it. I'm so not perfect. I really want to say to listeners, like, do not put me on a pedestal and think that I have this all figured out. Or Ashanti, like, no, that's not what this is. But all like the small, subtle ways that I have emasculated men that I still am and trying to be conscious of. So I would love if you could speak to that part of things because I feel like that is like such a big, deep wound, like emasculating men, trying to kind of dominate them, like shift the power dynamic, shift the polarity, all of that.
This topic of emasculating men has been very present for me recently. I am reading the work of Alison Armstrong and Queen's Code, and she talks about emasculation. And it's invited me to really explore. I mean, I've been doing this polarity work for a while already. So I feel like I've trained myself out of a lot of emasculating behaviors, and I've trained myself to um, show up in more respectful ways with a masculine. But this topic about emasculation, and you touched on it, it can happen in such subtle ways, almost imperceptible, right? And so recently, for me, the understanding around emasculation is what belief systems do I have internally that lead me to believe that men are not capable, that are not trustworthy, and that I don't need them. And I've been paying attention to what behaviors might I be engaging in that sends men those messages. And, I don't yell at men. I don't find that I criticize men a lot anymore and things like that. But when I dig deep, there are so many ways. When I finish a man's sentence, Am I thinking like, or when I rephrase what they said in a better way, like, why did I not think they were capable of, like, was the first way they said it not good enough? Like, so I'm paying attention to these little ways that I may, that are subtle, that I may still be sending men the message that I'm, that they're not capable, not trustworthy, and that I don't need them. And I gotta say, at the beginning, I was angry. I didn't, not because I wanted to defend emasculating men, but I was angry because I felt the burden fell on me to figure out how to speak in a different way, how to stop myself from doing these things, how to, I almost felt like I needed to treat men with these like white gloves. And that pissed me off because I was like, why? Why do I have to work this hard? And then I sat on that shit for a little bit and I led myself because this is part of the path. I didn't deny myself those feelings. That's exactly how I felt. I felt that why did the burden fall on me? And I'm angry about it. And then I received the download that it's not a burden. If I'm a priestess of love and my mission is to learn to love men well, then this is my responsibility. Learning to relate to men without emasculating them, without criticizing them, will only help me inspire men to be the best versions that they can be, to be the providers, the heroes, the protectors they are biologically wanting to be for us, for the feminine, for women, and creating that space. So, working with that, and it's definitely something that could be explored in a constellation, right? The ways, the hidden dynamics that are keeping me stuck in these subtle ways of emasculating. And how can I bring more harmony, order, and love into those dynamics so that I can have this internal shift? Because I think a lot of the work in polarity, sometimes it's very strategy focused. So, like if you do X, Y, and Z, then men will respond X, Y, and Z. And if you show up this way, if you say this word, and it's very strategy focused. But to me, the strategy only takes me so far. Because if I'm not experiencing that internal shift, that helps me be the woman that doesn't need the strategy because I naturally behave that way, then that is to me where the juice is at. When I'm no longer having to think like, oh, wait, was that emasculating? No, just because I don't naturally relate or orient myself to men in that way. So it's something that could be interesting to explore as well in a constellation.
Yeah, that's super helpful and something you touched on kind of at the end. Two parts of it. I mean, being able to just be in the embodied practice of like I just don't see men in that way anymore and I don't show up in that way and I don't have to constantly question like did I emasculate them? I think there's a step where you are in that. You are like hyper aware and then slowly but surely you just catch yourself more and more and you catch yourself in moments and then you apologize to the man and you say, I'm so sorry, that was inappropriate. I did not mean to emasculate you, but I could understand if that's how that came off. I won't do that again. And then you make a promise to yourself that you won't do it again because men and women are very different. Like a man is just not going to believe anything a woman says until she actually just does it. And so it doesn't matter how many times you say, oh, I'm sorry, oh, I'm sorry, oh, I'm sorry. Like it's just going to continue to degrade the trust until a woman really makes like that firm promise to herself, like, I'm not going to do that anymore. And then also, what I would say is such important deep work, the way that we show up with men, with like the external reflection of the masculine, is simply an internal reflection of how we are finding true reverence and respect for our inner masculine, the part of us that like does create structure and stability and organization and a through line. I know some people have a hard time like conceptualizing what is masculine, what is feminine. You can use the yin and the yang. That's been very helpful for me. Like, how do I really create deep reverence and love for my inner yang? That part of me. And how do I not question that part of me? How do I not degrade that part of me? How do I not think that part of me is like domineering or like oppressive or violent because it's just telling me to like eat 3 meals a day at the same time and like go for a walk and like take care of my basic needs. You know, the yang is holding all of that together. It's holding my inner feminine together, my yin juiciness and expression. And the other part that you were talking about, like that initial resentment that I felt in myself of being like, well, why do I have to change? You know, like, why can't men just get their shit together? Which there's two things that I'll touch on. You know, the book, Alison Armstrong's work in general is amazing, and a great book that I can highly recommend is The Queen's Code. To any woman who's listening to this and is like, where do I even begin? The Queen's Code, start. It's amazing. She says in one of the chapters, you know, women set the tone for a relationship, and men are actually responding to women, which is so not fun to hear. And what helped me really understand that from a biological perspective was with Dr. Sasha. And he made the point, he said, women hold the biological value because women can gestate and birth and nurture life. Like, we are responsible for the continuation of the species, whereas men are responsible for the protection and the survival of that new life. Like, that is their biological design, is like protect, provide for this new life. Women is like create and nurture. And so something that he said in class, which is like kind of brutal, but I'm going to say it because it helped click things in, is that men don't have biological value, like inherent biological value, because they cannot reproduce. Like that's just like the mammalian expression or understanding of biological value. Can they reproduce? Men can't do that. They show their value through the provision and protection that they offer to the mother of their children, to their family, to their community. That is how they are showing up. And so, because of that, women hold all of the power actually in a relationship because they are the ones who are deciding, I am going to choose this man and continue his bloodline by birthing his children. Like, what an immense honor for a man to be chosen for his bloodline to continue. Like, that is what all these men are out here competing for, is for their bloodline to continue. And for a woman to choose them and say, like, yes, you are the man that I want to father my kids. Like, I find you to be valuable. And not just in terms of you have a lot of money or you have a lot of possessions, but like your character, your sense of integrity, your purpose in this life, what you're showing up to do. That is the kind of man whose bloodline I want to birth, right? And so in that respect, it shifts, as you were saying, it shifts it from being a burden of like, ugh, like I have to change how I show up, into understanding like I set the tone for the entirety of this dynamic. And if I'm saying this man is valuable and worthy, I also have to show up in a way that makes him feel like I think he's valuable and worthy. And so there's like a lot of layers to that, but that's just kind of the way that I was able to like move through that initial como se dice, like that initial pushback in me, or that like inner feminist that was like, no, fuck the patriarchy, like ah, you know, this like young kind of immature part of me that just wants to fight. Like I had to just shift into like, I don't want to fight anymore. And I do think that if I shift my behavior, men will shift their behavior, which they have because they're responding to me. They're responding to my genuine open heart and care and recognition and valuing of them. And that's not to say that then men are like perfect and never make a mistake and never do things that piss me off. Like they have free will and they have every right to just live however they want to live. But then I also have every right and the responsibility to say, yeah, okay, that doesn't align with me. I'm going to walk away from that. It's not that hard, you know, like when you just stop seeing yourself as someone who is like an adversary with men, or like um a victim to men, or like at the hands of men's whims, like all of that kind of stuff. You just take back your power fully. Like you really take back your power.
Oh my goodness. Yes, so much. And then to me, I now see it like that power, it's also my responsibility, right? And I love what you said about, it's our responsibility to then choose a man that we feel that we can admire, that we can respect. And I love what you said about, and then it's not just like internally, I feel these things. No, how do I show? And not just my romantic partner, but all the men in my life, that I respect them, that I see them, that I see their value, and they are valuable. And I also have been experiencing how men respond differently to me from when I'm showing up from this new place, this new orientation of, you're not the enemy, you're my friend, I love you, right? Like, you're my brother, I love you. And I agree. It's not that men are perfect. And it's not that they're never going to do something that pisses me off or even that makes me feel disrespected. But because I do have this orientation now where, like, I'm showing them respect, even when I bring the thing that is not working for me, I do it from a place of respect. And from that place, they're able to meet me. And then sometimes the answer is still no, like, I'm not available to give you this thing. And that's okay. But I appreciate the compassion that you've had, the clarity that you had to share it with me in a respectful way so that then I can make a decision about how I want to orient myself to it. But that response, that when we show up differently, they're going to show up differently. And, when I had my internal struggle, I was like, I can defend this, right? Like, I can defend being pissed. And why is it my burden? And how will that serve me? Was the question that I was asking myself. And I couldn't find a way that it would serve me. And for that reason, I was willing to see something different and explore a different way.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think something that you touched on is this understanding that like let's say there is an issue in a relationship with a man, not particularly romantic, but just you have a dynamic with a man, there's a problem. You show up to them. The responsibility that a woman has is to really express cleanly and like maturely and respectfully like what is on her heart. This is what is happening right now. This is how I am feeling. This is where I'm feeling scared. This is where I'm feeling doubtful. This is where I'm feeling insecure. This is where I'm maybe not feeling so loved. Like, I'm going to bring that forth without any expectations in your mind of like, I'm going to share this and then he's going to do this, right? Like, I'm going to share this and he's going to give me exactly what I need. Like, you might share that and the man could be like, totally hear you. I understand you. I can't do anything about that. Okay, then what are you gonna do? Like, are you gonna pout? Are you gonna bitch? Are you gonna punish him? Are you gonna, like play this really manipulative role with your emotions? Or are you gonna say, okay, I shared and he wasn't open and available for it. And so I'm going to rely on my own internal masculine resourcing to hold myself through this and to also still have a community outside of this that I can go to and get feedback and get support and get resourced with as well. Or even from the most basic, like I'm gonna go and put my hands on a tree and let the tree hold me in the way that I need the masculine to hold me right now. I'm gonna go to the river and I'm gonna let the river hold me in the way that I need the masculine to hold me right now. I'm not going to put all of this pressure on just one person to fix this internal feeling that I have going on. And then also the other part of it is like, let's say in a romantic dynamic in particular, you're sitting here and you're asking for months or for years, for decades, like show up differently, show up differently, show up differently, show up differently. And this man has proven to you time and time again that he's not willing, he's not capable, he's not available, he's not able for whatever reason. That's on you to say, okay, I love you enough and I love myself enough and I respect you enough and I respect myself enough to walk away. It's on us. It's on us. And so there's a lot there. Go ahead. You want to say something?
Yes, and like the expectation that they have to become who we want them to be. Like, when we hold them in that space of like years and years and years of asking for the thing that I want and that I need, and the man not being available to give it to me for whatever reason, and then me insisting that they become this person. Like, how is that respectful? Like, what if we were on the receiving end of that? Like, we wouldn't like that either. And I think that it's way more loving to then release both of us from that, like, be who I want you to be, because that's not real love. Like, real love to me is I accept you for who you are, all of it, the good, the bad, and the ugly, all of it. Right. And for me, that's part of the reason why it's so important, like who you choose, and to take my time in that choosing process and getting to know somebody really well before I make that choice. And I hope that they would do the same, because to me, I want to choose somebody for life.
Yeah, I'm at that exact same point where I'm just like, okay, whoever I end up with in union, like to really make the decision, I want to be with them long term, marriage, family. I'm at the point now where I'm like, I am not going to play the same game of like picking a guy who I think I can change and make better. I did that, my whole life. Like at this point, my orientation is I trust that I am more than capable of calling in a partner who is already doing their work, who is so capable, who is so, so purpose driven, who is so aligned with his dharma that I'm not going to be sitting here being like, well, why doesn't he do that? And why doesn't he do that? Like, to really look at him from the very beginning and say, if I look at my life 20 years from now and he hasn't changed at all, do I still want to say yes? If I can do that, all right, then that's my husband. That's the man I want kids with. I think that's really the issue is when women get into it and they're like, he could do this or he could do that or blah, blah, blah. And then they spend all of their precious life force energy dedicated to changing or fixing this man instead of just dedicated to walking their path, to really showing up in the world in their work of service, and then blaming their man when like it was your job in the first place to like respectfully walk away when you knew that that's not what it was going to be. Like the lack of responsibility that women often want to take for like our lives and especially our unions, it's such a hard pill to swallow. I'm not saying any of this is a judgment. I'm in this process right now. And I'm also on the other side of it where I'm like, I'm so tired of that. It's so boring. Like, and I trust that men will rise when we set those expectations, when we set that tone in our union of like, this is who I am, this is where I'm at. I believe that I can call in a man like this. I just trust. I trust.
I just had this beautiful vision of am I the kind of woman that my landscape is a garden where men can come and plant their seeds and grow? Or am I a landfill where men have to come and be protecting themselves and like be scared or like tippy toeing because they never know when, I'm going to attack them or criticize them or judge them or put them down, like all these things. Like, am I a garden or am I a landfill for men?
Yeah, I feel like that's a beautiful thing to kind of wrap up this whole conversation. I feel like you nailed it right there. How are we showing up in that way? Oh my gosh, we could talk forever. There's like so much that we could keep getting into. I'd love to give you an opportunity to just share about how women can connect with you and potentially do constellations with you and all of that good stuff.
Thank you. Yes, I absolutely love doing this work and I love working with my sisters. And I am in transition at the moment. A lot of the work that I've been doing recently has been a lot of word of mouth. So I'm now working on having an official website and a YouTube channel where I'll be sharing more of like meditations and exercises, more interviews as well, and just sharing more of the wisdom of family constellations as a way of life as well. So we'll include those in the show notes so people can access me. And then the way that my process works is they can sign up to do an alignment call so that we can explore. It's like a brief call where we get to explore what is present for them, what are they navigating that they would like to bring to the field, to uncover what hidden dynamics might be at play there that they're not aware of. And then I go into a little bit more of like how a constellation works, and we'll see if it feels aligned, because this work is not for everyone. But if it does feel aligned, it can be incredibly powerful.
Yeah, amazing. I highly, highly recommend your work. I mean, it has created such beautiful ripples in my life, and especially for women who are listening to this, or men who might be listening to this and who are feeling deep resonance with this conversation, with this work, with this path, and just with everything that you have shared about what you're orienting towards. I highly recommend people to seek you out because the constellation work that you're doing is incredible. So thank you. So we are going to wrap up this part of the interview, and then we're going to also offer a meditation that Asha is going to give for, yeah, I guess a family constellation based, right?
Can I give a little sneak peek of what? So I created this constellation, this meditation, as a way to step into the healing work. So it's a constellation specifically to work around the issue, like an issue that we're having, and doing that first step of just being in the yes to it. No matter how hard it is or how much we don't understand why this is happening in our lives, this meditation helps you anchor that yes in your body so that you can access it more frequently as you navigate the challenge, the issue, the symptom, whatever is coming up.
Ah, amazing. I'm so excited. All right. Thank you so much, Ashanti Cervantes. This has been such a gift and a pleasure. Many, many blessings to you and your work, and to all the people that find their way to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. It's been such a pleasure, such a juicy conversation. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Mm-hmm.